Longlegs. Something I don't have, I'm afraid. Not doing a height reveal.
Unfortunate.
Not doing a height reveal yet. Hello, and welcome to HAZMAT, the only show that isn't full of cameos from 2003.
I hate to break this to you, but here comes Mr. Will Young.
No! I'm Matt.
And I'm Harry.
And this is the monthly thing. The part of the show where we talk about every new film or series we watched in the last month, whether we recommend them, what we felt about them, and how we felt watching them.
Bad or good, depending on which one it was.
That's how film reviews work. As always, we may get into a little bit of spoilery territory, so we will recommend up front, and then you can decide whether you want to hear what we have to say about them, and if you've seen it, maybe you agree with us, and if you disagree, I don't want to hear it.
I'm going to start hurting you.
First up, Deadpool and Wolverine. Fully recommend, of course.
I thought you were saying fully erect then.
I was fully erect the whole time.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, apt, because that's exactly how we kind of watch the film.
Yeah.
Easy recommend.
Easy recommend, hard penis.
Hard cock.
God, where do we even begin? Trust Deadpool to get Marvel back on track. A little bit.
Yeah.
Listen, I've shit-talked Marvel a lot on this channel. I haven't been the biggest fan of some of their recent output.
Yeah,
it's been hit or miss.
Phase 4 was a bit of a train wreck.
Yeah.
Are we in Phase 5 now?
Yeah, I think it started with like Ant-Man.
Yeah, Phase 5's not been much better.
Yeah.
But finally, a little glimmer of hope that we can get back to where we were.
And I think Ryan Reynolds himself put it nicely when he tweeted out, this isn't necessarily an introduction for them into the MCU. It's like a love letter and a goodbye to all the old forgotten like Fox properties.
The Fox, yeah, it was very much felt that way. It was like a kind of a thank you to like, you're the ones who paved the way, and that's where we kind of came from. And
yeah, the OG superhero films that in hindsight I think seen and received better than they were at the time, just through like, you know, nostalgia and stuff.
Yeah,
I think, to be honest, like I go back to a lot of these and you sort of realize like they are quite well crafted and short, like they're just interesting, I think. But it's because the MCU have now kind of followed a bit of a formula lately.
Yeah,
you know, kind of flat lighting, dull CGI effects and stuff. So I think now in hindsight a lot of those old ones have some character.
Yeah, it's, we talked about it a lot when we went back and watched some of the older X-Men movies, and how it is just so refreshing to see actual sets and stages and like wire work and
people in a room
effects
together. Yeah. They do have different vibes in a good way, despite what the MCU has achieved since.
It's gotten to that point as well where, because of the kind of introduction to the multiverse and all of the possibilities that came in, even a film like this that is like head and shoulders above what we've had, people are still going to be disappointed because it doesn't hit their exact expectations. But it's not supposed to be that. It was just it was like a fun movie to close out the Deadpool chapter within the Fox, and if he does come back into the MCU proper, that's what I'm most interested in, I guess, is how that character fits into the MCU, because they're so
going forward
kind of clean cut in comparison.
And I think a big problem with like some of the recent superhero stuff is people's expectations ruining it for themselves.
You're ruining it.
You're ruining it. You know, I think because a lot of it has become so reliant on cameos and crossovers that people are predicting and expecting certain things and theorizing, and so when that stuff doesn't happen, it's automatically a bad film for them, you know. So I think I didn't really think about this one much going into it. I didn't really know what to expect plot wise, you know. I knew it was multiverse because there was talks of all that stuff, and obviously it kind of had to be to get him involved within the MCU. But I think what helped is I went in with kind of not low expectations, like no expectations. I think I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't know who was going to be there. I didn't know who to expect, so I was kind of just happy to be taken along on the ride, and I'm so glad we saw it early enough that we got none of them spoiled. I didn't see a single thing about. I think we saw it like day 2 or something.
Yeah, I think this is one where I didn't watch a lot. I think I watched maybe the initial trailer and then maybe one other.
Yeah.
So the only thing I knew going into it was that the TVA would be involved, which I was a little bit like about, because the two of us, we weren't like massive fans of the Loki series.
Yeah, I thought Loki was good in parts, but very sort of convoluted, which has been a big problem of mine with the multiverse stuff. Is it lacks focus.
There's just way too much going on.
They don't really know what it actually does or means or how anything happens. There seems to be lots of different explanations to how like things branch off and change and timelines get snipped and started anew and stuff. It seems to have been a different explanation in everything they've done. So yeah, I've been a bit like hazy about the multiverse, but I think Deadpool and Wolverine did it well. I think they did it in like a simple and understandable enough way that it didn't detract from the main story and the characters together. You know, it didn't become this convoluted, like, where even are they in the timeline? Like, how are they there? What are they doing right now? Whereas I think that there was the problem with Loki's. I was like, I don't know where the fuck anyone is at this point. It's outside everything, but it's supposed to connect to everything. And, like, I don't know. It was very, very confusing.
Like, this very much was just like, my timeline is fucked, your timeline is fucked, let's work together and unfuck them.
Yeah.
Whereas the Loki timeline is just like, I came from one timeline, now I'm like outside of time, and also I've changed everything.
I like time travel stories, and I like multiverse stories and all that sort of stuff and alternate dimensions, but I think you have to at least have some kind of solid groundwork for the rest of it to work on top of that, you know, which I think is something they've just missed. I think it's like none of them have actually got in a room together and gone, right, this is how the multiverse works.
No,
this is how they travel between it and all that. They've just all had to do their own thing. They haven't been like given direction. They're like, yeah, just do whatever. It doesn't matter.
Whenever something like that happens, a wizard did it.
And that's the problem with like the stakes in a lot of these recent ones, is that who gives a shit? Who gives a shit if anyone dies?
If anyone dies, we just bring another one of them back. Who cares? Whereas
the stakes in Deadpool and Wolverine felt real because it was like, particularly his like 12 friends or whatever were in danger. Like the stakes were for him, his family, you know, his found family, and then that connected with the sort of backstory we got about the alternate Wolverine as well. And so the stakes felt real and tangible again, you know? Yeah,
because they made the effort of going like, I mean, if Deadpool somehow died in this, like, people go, oh yeah, they'll just bring another Deadpool in, who cares? But like, it's like you said, they specified that it is about this specific universe and this specific version of these people because they're the ones that he's got to know and like become like close and like a family to. So why would he care about any other universe other than this one that he's from?
So yeah, I think they brought all that together really well, which is admirable considering, you know, the wishy-washy groundwork of the multiverse so far.
Yeah, now we're just going to comprehensively list every single cameo they put in this, so no one can have any surprise going into it now.
let's quickly rank the cameos.
Starting at number 126.
Jennifer Garner, my personal fave. I've never seen Elektra, but I was a fan of Alias back in the day.
Yeah.
And I like her.
I like
her.
Yeah, there's some big ones. And honestly, like, one of mine, just because it was a very cool touch, was the Welsh Deadpool.
Oh, yeah.
Under the mask was Paul Mullen, who's a striker for
Oh,
Wrexham.
really? I didn't know that. That's cool.
I swear I read that there was, like, a cowboy Deadpool, and that was Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, right.
Just, like...
That's a fun idea, to do that and, like, have none of them actually unmasked.
They're just kind of... Yeah, they're just kind of in it.
I like that. So, yeah, people that know, yeah. We can't mention Deadpool...
we can't mention Deadpool in this video anymore. We said it too much.
Too much now. Let's move on. We can't mention cameos without talking about Mr. Evans, Mr. Storm himself. That got me. I'll admit that got me. Again, because I wasn't expecting who to expect.
It was a clever setup in that they did like the iconic like blue color scheme, and then like, oh my god, like Captain America's here, and then they throw the 180, and it's like...
And I was really pleased with that, because, you know, for the second I thought it was going to be Captain America.
Yeah.
I was like... Why though? But then when it was Johnny Storm, I was like, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, can't talk about the cameos without OG Sabretooth, OG Pyro.
Back again. OG Pyro
back
again.
I didn't get him enough of his face to know, but like possibly OG Toad.
Yeah, I think it was him from the first one. Yeah. Which obviously we screamed in the cinema.
Absolutely fucking... you got kicked out. We had to go to another showing to finish it. And also, I guess Wesley Snipes and Channing Tatum were there.
They were also there. Those guys.
No, he was a great gambit.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was cool, and that was like, it's the one cameo where we're not bringing everyone back. We're bringing in what he never got to do.
It's like a what could be, like a what if cameo, which is like such an interesting angle. I can't name another time that's sort of thing's been done.
I can't remember if it was in the Flash movie, whether he did something similar in
like
the Nicolas Cage as Superman.
Yeah, true.
I can't remember was that in it, or was that like a cut?
It was in it, I think.
Yeah.
There was a big sequence with a bunch of all the old CGI Superman.
But we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. So yeah, there's been some similar, but I think like this is the best one to do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's just such a purity about it. Like he clearly does really care for the character and want to play it. And I think it must have been so disappointing for him to have never got it off the ground until this point.
Yeah, especially because like the only like other Gambit we had was not a good interpretation at all. Channing Tatum actually put in the effort to like do the accent.
Yeah, he was
and
great.
Get the costume right.
He did it really well. I'm really glad we did watch all the X-Men before this because, like I've said in a lot of those videos, I hadn't actually seen a lot of them. So, like, I'll admit I don't have the like nostalgia factor for several of these cameos. Like Johnny Storm is probably the one where I was like, oh shit, yeah, because I did watch the Fantastic Four films growing up. But yeah, I can understand like how kind of nice and important it is to kind of celebrate all these old ones as we sort of move away from all that.
They put Wolverine in it.
Yeah, we should talk about Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine.
No, we shouldn't.
Okay. Moving on.
No, like a lot of people, I've seen posts already about people saying like, oh, like this just means that the death means nothing now. Like this death doesn't mean anything anymore. I mean, obviously when Ryan Reynolds announced they were doing this movie, they did the post saying like, oh yeah, we're not touching Logan, we're not doing anything with that. And they do.
Yeah.
But like in a funny way, in that that's exactly in line with Deadpool's character and still left him dead in that universe.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sort of bait and switch in a way. You think they're not going to affect Logan, and then you're like, oh shit, they actually are. And then again, it flips around to like, oh no, yeah, he is dead.
He is dead.
But I don't think it ruins the legacy of that one at all. Again, I watched it literally the day before we went to see it, I think. So again, I haven't had the emotional impact of Logan. It was great, but we were watching it at 2 a.m. So I was like, yeah, that was good. But I can understand that viewpoint, but it's like, again, it's a different universe Wolverine. It's like a kind of new storyline. He had his own stakes in his own emotional battle. And it's not like they forced Hugh Jackman back into it, you know. He clearly enjoys playing this character. And, you know, obviously there was the running gag of Deadpool going, till you're 90.
Yeah. And he will.
And he will.
And he will.
I honestly don't think this is the last time he's going to do it. I genuinely do think that. Even if it's just a short thing somewhere, this absolutely won't be the last time he's on screen as Wolverine.
Yeah, we'll see it again, but like it won't be the Wolverine.
No, yeah, like I say, it'll be different universe Wolverines, which... Yeah, again, it opens up the possibility to just do different things with it. And that's kind of what comic books are all about. And I think as the MCU goes forward, it has been becoming more comic book-ish in terms of different things connect to different places, and you can kind of jump in at certain points and not have to watch other stuff because, you know, comic books there's so many, there's no way you could keep up with all of them. And I think at a certain point the MCU was getting like that. So yeah, it's a very comic booky thing to just kind of find some kind of loophole to bring a character back, you know. I don't know, it worked for me, I think.
But I think we just enjoy any time Hugh Jackman plays Wolverine.
Yeah, we've said in all these videos, even the bad Wolverine films, him on screen as Wolverine is intoxicating.
I like it when he puts on the cowl. I've been waiting
so he finally did that.
For that.
He finally did that.
Years for that.
Now, hot take here. I know it was very important to a lot of people, but I can understand when films don't do the comic costumes because a lot of them look insane.
A lot of them look
weird.
really stupid, and also, why would you pay a star like Hugh Jackman to be in your movie and then cover up his face
up? Yeah, I can totally understand why a lot of movie costumes are not comic book accurate. It's never been something I've been super bothered about, but I can appreciate the effort that went into it.
It did throw a spanner in the works though, where they do that and they show that you can do the classic yellow blue Wolverine costume without it looking completely ridiculous.
Still make it look good. Yeah.
Yeah, easy. Good. All good.
All good.
All good. We're all good now.
We're good.
Back on track.
Yes.
Kang is gone.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. I think this is my best of the month.
Ooh.
I didn't really think about it until then, but I think it is. It's got some competition with what we're going to talk about next.
No, I'll say it is very close. I think it's like you said, it is very close.
You can only use it once.
You only get one.
I'm going to save it.
You only get one golden buzzer.
Deadpool and Wolverine straight to the final of the monthly thing. Next up, Longlegs.
I'm wearing my long legs today.
Something I don't have, I'm afraid. Not doing a height reveal.
Unfortunate.
Not doing a height reveal yet.
Not doing it yet.
Height reveal at 800 subscribers. Height reveal at 570 subscribers.
Yeah, and then 571 is the face reveal.
Recommend from me.
Yeah, real strong recommend.
Absolutely.
I think this might be my favourite thing for the month.
Yeah, this is what was up there, contending wise with Deadpool and Wolverine for me. The marketing around this film has been interesting because the most I'd heard about it was it being like the scariest film ever released. So I really did go into this thinking like, am I going to see some shit that's going to scar me for life? What is Nick Cage going to look like in this film? But I think less scary. Creepy is probably the word.
Yeah, more like it's more psychological than anything.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's a bit more of a crime thriller. It's got horror elements.
Yeah.
But it's a bit more of a serial killer thing.
Well,
with a hint of supernatural.
It's like what I saw, like, eventually all of the trailers started saying it was a modern version of Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I can see that.
But yeah, I mean, despite not being as scared as I thought it was going to be, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed the atmosphere of the film. I thought the central performances from Micah.
Nicholas.
Melee?
Nicholas?
Is it Micah Melee?
Cage.
Micah Monroe. Yeah, Micah Monroe. And what was it? Nicolas Cage. I think second month in a row we've talked about Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, because I think was it Arcadian before?
Yeah, that you saw.
Where I said like Nicolas Cage and horror just go together, and this is absolute proof of that.
Yeah, I can't remember if I included it, but I made the observation that he's kind of on a bit of a run right now. Like he's on a bit of a hot streak. You know, he's been known in Hollywood to have his fair share of duds.
Because he's definitely one of those ones where he would just take whatever was going.
He famously said yes to most of what he was offered, if not all. And so yeah, naturally there's just a bunch of B movies in there and like just whatever action films. But then occasionally he'd do like something incredible. But I think he seems to be picking and choosing a lot more lately and just picking really interesting roles that he clearly has like. Well, I mean, he has passion about every role he plays. I think that's something that's really admirable about him. But yeah, he's clearly playing stuff right now that he really wants to and really finds interesting and engaging, if you will. Just a little joke there.
Just if you weren't aware, that was a little joke.
Just a little joke. Just
a
point
small
out,
joke.
That was a joke. And so yeah, it's great. It's just great to see him just put his all into such a larger than life character. You know?
It's always when he's at his best is when he's given a role where they're just like, all right, your character is fucking nuts.
Yeah, he's so good at that.
He's just like, all right, leave it to me. I'll do that.
I'll just like scream and stuff.
I'll just get in the car and then I'll shout something really loud. I don't know.
Something about a mommy and a daddy.
Not necessarily in that order, but you know, I'll workshop some things.
I'll figure it out in the dressing room. Is Nick alright? I've heard him in his trailer. He is screaming and yelling.
He's screaming.
Is he just rehearsing?
He might actually be crying. I went in there. It looked like he might have been crying.
It's a mess. It's a mess in there. Something interesting I thought is they don't really use his face for sort of the first half of the film, really.
No, you very rarely get like a proper glimpse of it. In fact, that might be my favorite almost kind of jump scare or cut in the movie is that opening sequence where he crouches down, he bends down to talk to the girl and it immediately like cuts away.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. That was the kind of moment where I was like, oh shit, we're in for a ride here. But yeah, I mean, it's a classic thing of horror. Don't show your monster / villain straight away.
Yeah,
right? The unknown is scarier than the known every time. And so yeah, I found that way creepier because I was like, God, is he gonna look like really fucked up or something? And then they finally reveal his face, and kind of yeah, he's very heavily fucking Shakespeare off. Yeah, prosthetically made up to the point he's almost unrecognizable.
We did say that until it gets to there's a sequence where he's being interrogated down at the police station and you get a very clear front-on shot of him.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like Nick Cage throughout the rest of the thing.
Yeah,
and that's the only moment where you really kind of think, oh yeah, I'm looking at a Nick Cage performance.
That's him. Just, yeah, great all-round performance from Mr. Cage.
I really enjoyed, I did a little bit of research into the marketing and the production of this movie. I didn't realise they did like a full like ARG to promote it.
Oh, right.
I think it was just called The Birthday Murders, and like you could do your own sort of digging and investigation. It kind of gives you a little bit of backstory and additional information about the film. And then what was really cool was some of the interviews with the director. A lot of people were asking like, oh, what does the ending mean? And why did you do this and why did you do that? Because there is like a satanic twist to it that they kind of put in about, and a lot of his answers are just like, I just thought about what would be scary.
Right.
Which is such a novel concept in that I feel like horror is really, really diluted when it comes to style over substance. A lot of people are looking to they're trying to force in some kind of deeper deeper meaning within the subtext, and it takes away from the scary because they're no longer telling a good story. They're not focused on that. They're just like, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean?
Yeah.
So to have someone just say, I just thought about what would be creepy and what would be scary.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna roll with that. It's just refreshing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Especially with a modern horror movie.
I suppose it is sort of a bit left up to interpretation. My personal interpretation, just purely from preference, is that it was some kind of hypnosis thing going on. I feel like it's ambiguous as to whether it's like really supernatural or not. That's how I took it anyway.
I kind of went in as like, you can look at the literal satanic element. I think mine was more, it was our main character kind of inventing a reason, or like trying to justify a lot of the things that are happening because of some kind of trauma from their past. I assume they did encounter Longlegs in their past, and now they've demonized them because of the experience that they had with them as a child.
Right, yeah.
And now they've envisioned them as the ultimate evil. And there's a lot of childlike things about it. I mean, the guy's a doll maker. It's all stuff that a child would draw from.
Yeah.
In order to kind of to create this horrible kind of villain. It's one of them like kind of slow burn horror movies, but it's never boring.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just something I love. It feels small, but it works really well. Engaging and dramatic. Other words as well.
Yeah, I hate high stakes. I'm done with the Marvel stuff now. Everything's all world-ending high stakes. I want just a small community being affected. Please, thank you.
Longlegs had to save his timeline because all his friends were going to die.
That boy's having a sip.
Having a sip between takes. Okay, Longlegs take 2. Next up, I think we can get a better one.
Just remember everything you said and say it again.
Say it more concisely. Next up, Maxxine. Fucking mix.
Maxine. Fucking mix. You have to pronounce it properly. It's Maxine.
Fucking mix.
Well, I think interesting choice for them to misspell her name in the title.
Honestly, I hadn't thought about whether this is a recommend for me, and I don't know if it is. Well, it is if you saw X and you liked X, and you like Ty West, and you like Mia Goth.
Well,
this is the movie for you.
That was gonna be my exact kind of response to is that it's a recommend from me because I really enjoy the work of Ty West and Mia Goth.
It's a good follow up to this series. To be honest, it was better. It was better than I expected it to be. I'd seen a lot of trash talking about this film.
Of the 3, it's the weakest.
Yeah,
but that's more a compliment to the work of Ty West to say that his series is so strong that even this one, which is sort of the lesser of the 3, is still like pretty good.
Yeah, so recommend with that caveat in mind. If you sort of enjoyed this series and his work. I think it's a standalone film. Yeah, it's possibly a bit weak. It's sort of nothing special, I guess. Satanic Panic in the 80s, I think it's kind of been done several times, but yeah, it was a fun ride. Mia Goth, great central performance as Maxine fucking Minx herself. I think she's been great throughout all of these and shown some really good range.
Yeah, it's weird the kind of structure they've done it in. If this were a typical way of doing it, like X should have been the last one.
Right, yeah.
In that we establish Maxine as a character, then we establish Pearl as a character, and then they kind of cross over and meet in the third.
But it's been an interesting way to do it. I wonder if he planned it or if he made X and then was like, actually, I want to explore these characters more.
That seems more likely as X was just kind of a one-off horror film, and it's like, actually, I enjoyed working with Mia Goth and I enjoy these characters and I want to flesh things out a bit.
But I thought it was an interesting setting. I think that's something Ty West is really good at, is the setting.
He can absolutely capture a specific time period.
Yeah, he can really nail that. I like the bit like on the Bates Motel set. And the Psycho set, of the Bates Motel. Guy who only knows Bates Motel and not Psycho.
I was just looking around like, where's Freddie Highmore?
Where is he?
Where's Freddie Highmore?
Where's Freddie Highmore?
Where's Vince Vaughn?
A separate guy that only knows the Psycho.
He only knows the Psycho.
Freddie Highmore looks nothing like a young Vince Vaughn.
It's making sense.
Yeah, I haven't got loads to say about it, I guess. It was just kind of a fun, cheeky horror slashery sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's another one where there's not too much kind of subtext to it. It's a slasher movie with like homages to other classic slasher. Like you can tell that in a lot of the movies he makes, when the look and feel of X was kind of designed to I think it was set during the 1970s, and you get the feel of something like a Texas Chainsaw, where it's that really grimy, kind of dirty looking backwoods horror movie. But yeah, it's not supposed to be anything that you're supposed to think about really hard. You just go there and have a fun time.
Yeah, it's got the right hallmarks. It hits the right points. We did think the third act falls apart a little bit. I didn't think the reveal that, spoiler alert, it was her dad, worked on screen. I always think when reveals like that happen, it has to be someone we've physically seen already.
Yeah.
If the reveal is going to be visual like that. And it was sort of obvious going on to it that it was going to be a dad anyway from the old videos and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a second you're like, who is it? Have we seen him in the film already or what? And so that kind of ruins that moment a little bit when you have to kind of double check who it is. So I think the reveal didn't quite land as sort of the pinnacle moment. And the sort of ensuing chase scene with the other FBI agents sort of got a bit hammy and like ridiculous.
It just, immediately kind of just went balls to the wall, which doing everything. Like
the guy, like, I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but when the FBI agent's like dying by the Hollywood sign, he's like, I always wanted to come up here, I never got the chance. It's like, are we supposed to like give a shit about that? Like, is it supposed to be funny?
The guy was a dick the whole time.
Yeah. So yeah, it got a bit sort of hammed up. But again, that sort of reflects the 80s horror that it was sort of a homage to, I guess.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it that way, you know, a lot of those were very ridiculous and hammed up because it was just the style of films.
Yeah, I think focusing it around Hollywood especially was a good idea, because I'd say 80s horror is where like the icons of horror really come from. You know, like your Freddy Kruegers, your Jasons,
Mike Myers that went on to star in Shrek and Austin Powers.
Yeah, your Mike Myers. That's kind of where they all come from.
Yeah. It's would you say that's kind of is that considered a golden age maybe of horror?
I'd say, yeah, it's definitely slashers. It's the golden age of slashers, for sure.
Yeah, specifically.
But modern horror and 2000s onward, you don't really get horror movies nowadays where the creature or the killer or the monster is like iconic, because they don't franchise horror anymore as much.
Right.
So you don't really get like a familiar face who's like come back to terrorize like a new group of people.
Yeah, I feel like horror these days is more about the premise.
Yeah.
They work up from the premise. Or, you know, they make a haunted pool. Or...
Yeah, they do the Stephen King thing of like, what if this was scary? What if this was scary?
Yeah, rather than, like a recurring serial killer.
What if
or
swimming
whatever.
pool was scary? What if tarot deck was scary? What if teddy bear was scary?
The possibilities are endless.
We're still asking what if, because none of them were.
No, none of them were. I don't know what would happen if a pool was scary. I've never seen it. Don't go in. Okay.
So all right, problem solved.
Problem solved. Won't go in then.
We'll not swim then.
But yeah, overall enjoyable film. Some tonally weird moments throughout. Doesn't quite stick certain landings, but yeah, I think overall enjoyable.
Yeah.
Next up, A Quiet Place, Day 1. What do we say about this?
Nothing. Don't say it, because they'll comment. I think I'll recommend it.
I would recommend this. Hot take. I mean, I don't think I've seen Quiet Place 2. I think I liked it better than A Quiet Place.
Well, A Quiet Place is better than A Quiet Place 2, so
right.
you'll
so
probably like
by
it
default.
better. Yeah.
I think this might be the best entry in the series then.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that like we talked about when it came out, and somehow our two leads in this had more chemistry on screen together than actual married couple John Krasinski and Emily Blunt.
Yeah. Lupita Nyong'o, Joseph Quinn, just a great pairing on the screen.
Weird choice for them to do it that way, I guess, because they kind of did it without realizing that we kind of already perfected the formula of two sort of mismatched characters on a journey together in 1995. We already perfected that. We did that. We did it perfectly in 1995, and we don't need to do that again.
Titanic?
You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know it came out in 1995.
I don't want to say it.
You don't have to say it.
I don't want to say it.
You don't have to say it. There it is.
Shh, he's gotta come.
I'm gonna hear him yucking up the skirt.
But yeah, I really liked this, and I thought they were just much more interesting as characters. I think the situation of it being the start of it was more interesting to watch than already being post-apocalyptic. And we've had the discussion of what Quiet Place did wrong is it showed the creature way too early. There should have been a hidden
It's within like the first 10 minutes or something.
Literally, and that just takes away any sort of mystery or fear. But I think this regained it a little bit, because now it's like, oh, where did they come from? What are they? Even we're kind of exploring that a little bit.
Where did they go?
Where did they go? Where did they come from? Cotton Eye Joe, save Quinn. Looped it back around, related it.
Bring it back around, connecting it all into circles.
Just a little joke there.
just to make the audience aware. That was
I feel like
just a little play on words.
People aren't getting the jokes.
Yeah.
We need to just point them out.
Just need to point out.
Little joke counter at the top. Ding. And I think it didn't even really go into that, actually. To be honest, it was a film about where they came from, and it didn't even really tell us.
No, it was marketed. It seemed. A lot of the phrases they use in the trailers were kind of about the origin of how it all started.
Yeah.
And then the character pretty much sleeps through the origin.
Just blacks out the whole thing, and we don't find out. So yeah, we're just sort of meant to accept they're just sort of these strange aliens that sort of came down one day and just destroyed everything within an afternoon.
For no reason.
So the film is literally day one.
Day one.
Yeah, not sort of any sort of explanation. It's literally just,
it's just day
what
one.
happened on day one.
What happened on day one.
That's it. But I thought the emotional beats landed better than the original. Yeah, like we say, the chemistry between them was just more fun to watch. And this one had a cat, so that's already a point.
Already puts it well and truly above.
Well above any film I've seen.
Well, the emotional beats, I guess it was easier for this one because the characters had actual motivation.
Right.
As silly as the motivation was,
yeah,
they managed to bring it back around and tie it into their backstory and their past. Whereas with the other two movies, the motivation is survival, and that's
just
it.
Survival. Because they've just been doing it so long, they're familiar with it all.
There's no sort of grand plan or any kind of objective they're trying to achieve. It's just let's not die today.
And yeah, so it's much more interesting to watch people figure out a plan from a new situation.
Like where they ate the pizza. We went to go get pizza afterwards.
Yeah, I really liked that her end goal was just such a small thing. Just get a pizza.
But there's a reason for it, and it's a deep-rooted emotional thing.
Yeah, and that really landed for me. I think is, again, I've said a couple of times this episode, in fact, that I think small stakes are just better to get behind, and they can be way more interesting, and you can do more with them, I think.
And it's an interesting character kind of thing to explore, in the fact that she'd kind of accepted the fact, we established from the beginning that she's undergoing cancer treatment, and she's kind of in this state of, well, I'm probably with everything that's going on, and on top of that, I'm probably not going to live much longer.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't I just do this one thing that I'm probably never going to get to do again?
And I think it is a nice juxtaposition, if you'll allow me to use a large word.
No.
Okay, sorry. Balance.
There we go.
Between her sort of nihilism and then Joseph.
Dial that one back.
Sorry, her uncaringness.
There we go.
And Joseph Quinn's enthusiasm, excitability. Fun-having nature.
There we go.
Well, not necessarily enthusiasm, but naivety maybe.
Naivete makes more sense.
Yeah.
He was just a lost puppy.
Yeah, he was sort of along for the ride, and he was following around, like a lost puppy. That was sort of where the chemistry came from, I think, because she kind of learned to care about him, and he was clinging on to her for dear life. It was just lovely. I really like this.
Every time the cat wasn't on screen, we're screaming, "Where the hell's the cat? Where's the cat? Where is he?"
Where is fucking Jar Jar Binks? What was he called?
I think it was Frodo.
I knew it was a character.
Rogue franchise.
Okay, cut. Take 5.
I want you off the fucking set, you prick!
Next up. I'm gonna do it again because you sniffed.
Yeah, I was in the middle of laughing. I was in the middle of laughing.
Next up, In a Violent Nature.
No, that's a stage direction. You're not trying to read that out loud.
Oh, sorry. Next up. I was going to say that's how I do the dishes.
Oh,
In a Violent Nature.
It's the only way you can get the grease off.
We've left it for too long. The food's in
Fuck's
package.
sake! Fuck, get the scouring
God
pad.
damn it.
Get the fucking scrub daddy out.
Don't wash the wok. Not the wok. We need the flavour. Don't you know anything about cooking?
Gordon Ramsay's my dad.
Can you tell? Fucking hell, he's having a munch.
It's got off the rails.
This one's unhinged.
Off the rails.
I just got reminded of that tweet. It's like Gordon Ramsay goes to the back and finds a little like ghoulie. He's like, fucking hell, there's a little ghoulie in here. He's like, and he says, like, fucking hell, there's a little ghoulie in here.
What does that mean?
He's having a munch. Well, at least someone's enjoying the food.
What does that mean? Fucking hell! There's a little ghoulie in here. He's having a munch.
He's having a munch.
Someone's fucking enjoying the food.
I bet I can find the video. Is just gonna cut to the next bit. We're just gonna be like red and sweaty.
This film is rotten. My favourite film is Frozen.
Gordon Ramsay. Let's have a look in the walk-in. Opens doors, he's a little mushroom man eating a rotten cucumber like a banana. Fuck me, did you know you have a little ghoulie in there? Fuck, that's frightening. He's having a munch. At least someone is enjoying the food.
Oh, mushroom
So good.
man.
Oh, mushroom man eating a cucumber like a banana. Whew. Goodness gracious. This is a recommendation. We don't take this seriously anymore, and that's the problem.
That's the issue, is that we just keep making jokes.
You go back
we
to
keep
episode
being,
1.
We just keep being funny.
We just talk about the films.
We talked about the film. We go back to Harry Potter. We actually had things to say about that.
We really talked about the films. Yeah, In a Violent Nature. Recommend from me, I think.
And me.
I like this.
Easy.
I like this. It was an interesting flip on the genre.
Yeah, it's not something that I can't even remember how I saw it. Like how I saw it being advertised. I don't know whether it was something you mentioned or like I think I saw maybe like 1 or 2 trailers for it in the cinema, but like ages ago.
Right, yeah.
And then you mentioned it, and it kind of like triggered it, and I was like, oh yeah, like I kind of saw a bit like that. And
Yeah, because I saw someone tweeted out a clip of him walking through the forest, just that bit where it's kind of behind him.
yeah,
And it was something like, it was trash talking. It was like, this is some of the most boring shit I've ever seen, or like, this movie was really boring. It sort of mentioned, oh, it's from the point of view of a serial killer or whatever. And I was like, being me, like, that sounds fucking great to me.
that sounds like my
That
kind
sounds
of all
fucking
good
great to
film.
me. Long boring film. Sign me up. And I like that concept. We're from his point of view rather than the sort of group of teens in the cabin or whatever. And I thought it made for some really interesting, like, sort of framing wise, shot wise. It almost felt video game-esque at times to me.
It was very much like playing. They actually did a game of Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah.
Where the whole concept is everyone plays as the campers, apart from one person who plays as Jason, and their whole objective is to go around and kill everyone. That's what this movie felt like, is because in the game, it rewards you, it gives you more points and stuff. Sort of the more creative and the more violent your kills are. And that's what this movie felt like.
Yeah.
Is you get into that mindset of like watching certain scenes and you're like, oh, it would have been like way cooler and way more violent if you'd done it this way. And then you kind of come out and you're like, why the fuck was I thinking like that?
yeah. Well, I would have actually pulled her head through a leg.
I think that would have been cool. That's just me though.
Instead of a body,
That's just
I
me.
would have gone further down. That's just me though.
That's just me, mate. You don't. I mean, you're
You're the expert.
you're the undead murderer. You're the undead murderer.
Not me, if only. And yeah, some of these kills are gruesome. On screen.
One in specific.
One in specific has scarred me forever. They're also, I mean, they're almost gruesome to kind of a comic extent.
Yeah.
Like, they're almost funny at certain points. Like, they're so outlandish that you just like, fucking hell.
This movie really does seem like an homage to Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
The setup is almost identical. It's a bunch of like sort of young people out at like a secluded lake, and it's an undead killer.
I think because like they already did the flip, they didn't really have to do anything special with the premise.
No,
Like, as a premise, it's pretty plain and sort of generic.
It's what's the movie called? It's kind of like what Brightburn did,
Right.
Where it was the Superman origin story, but what if Superman was evil?
Yeah. So like, yeah, it's a similar premise, but you just flip something on its head,
Yeah,
and immediately it's more interesting to watch because it's a way we've never seen it before. It's a perspective we've never seen it from. So I think it didn't need to particularly do anything special, like plot wise. I think it was enough to have us deep in the forest and deep in the mindset of this killer that's chasing after them. Another thing that I noticed that made it feel more video game-esque was the sort of almost stilted dialogue at times, almost unnatural, and like just the sound design of it. The voices sort of getting louder as he approached.
Yeah.
As if when you walk towards people in a sort of game like that, the
dialogue
that's going on,
clear,
it had like that effect specifically. And so that really put me in that sort of video game space, and I thought that was interesting. I like that sort of unnatural, a bit wooden almost at times dialogue,
because these characters aren't meant to be important. They are there just as fodder to be killed off. So I think it can be forgiven that it's presumably deliberate that they were sort of talking so generically, and we don't really get much characterization out of them. That's always been kind of a trope of those kind of movies, is that the characters never really matter. Even when the movie is traditionally from their perspective and you're supposed to be rooting for these people, they're never developed to any point where you actually care about them. They're always there just to be killed off, and you're in for that kind of ride. But this time, because we're experiencing things from the creature's perspective, that makes way more sense. Because why would he care about any of these people as characters?
Exactly.
Like, I can just appreciate this movie in that, seeing all the beats of like that kind of horror movie, you can see all the staples, but we don't get to see the context of like scene to scene how we got there. Because we're just following this one killer around.
Like he comes back around and we're at the next stage in whatever's going on with them. But really, really interesting spin on a classic genre.
Really, really interesting spine. The bit with the spine, that was good. I like that. That bit with remember the bit with the spine?
Yeah,
that's my favourite bit.
Sorry,
that's like my favourite
violent
bit. My favourite bit.
In a violent nature, in a cinema near you.
Next up, Blue Lock, episode Nagi. This is gonna be my first not recommend. Not because it's bad, but because you could just watch something else and get the exact same experience. So just for context, Blue Lock is a series that I watch. It's an anime series. The whole kind of concept of it is they take a bunch of up-and-coming football players in Japan, take them to this high-tech facility where they're putting them through various trials to eventually kind of craft the perfect football player. It's kind of got that high-stakes thing that Squid Game has, but it's not that they die if they get eliminated. It's that if they're eliminated, they forfeit any right to ever play for the Japanese national team.
That's worse than death.
Which is arguably worse than death. But it's kind of like it's high stakes football anime, which is just, I can get into it. It takes this kind of bizarre approach where it has similar things to a lot of that kind of like shonen anime, where characters will regularly like power up and gain new abilities, but all they're doing is unlocking new football talents. It's like they're improving their dribbling or their speed or like their aerial ability, but it's framed as like really cool like powers, and they put like fucking flames and shit in it. This movie on paper like seemed like it should have been really good.
That's a book. I think you'll find a movie on paper is a book.
Sorry, this book. No, in its concept, this movie should have been good. It was a retelling of the series up until the point we've got to, from the perspective of a different character.
Interesting. The serial killer that killed him.
Not the serial killer. Which I would have probably appreciated it if it had gone more into their backstory, because they had a more kind of interesting experience in the process, because they were sort of discovered by another player for having natural talent, but their whole kind of outlook on life was, I don't really want to get into anything or do anything. I just want to play video games and like lie about my whole life and never have any kind of passion. And then it's only through sort of their playing against the main protagonist of the series, who is really kind of impassioned and really devout to developing their football, that he kind of sees football from a new light and it's like, okay, and now actually I want to be like you and get better and be an elite player like you want to be. But it just doesn't do enough, this movie, in terms of sort of delving into their character. It was very much treading over similar territory, just from a slightly different angle. If I can make a comparison to the Spy Family movie I watched, which I loved, they kind of took the approach of, let's take all of the things that people like and that are good about this series and then just dial it way up. Whereas this didn't feel like it had that leap to warrant it being a movie. Like, this would have been fine if it were like a couple of episodes episodes of the main series, or like a little spin-off type thing. If it had been episodic, I would have been fine with it, but it didn't do enough to justify it being like a theatrical release. Not on quality, because the quality is exactly on par with the show itself, so people that like the show might enjoy watching it. But I suppose the only guise that I could recommend it in is if you can't be bothered to sit down and watch the show. This pretty much covers everything in a more sort of condensed way. But other than that, no, not a recommend. Just not quite for me.
Cut.
Name 5 people that got the start on YouTube.
PewDiePie, Jabuzcus, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye,
And HAZMAT.
Next up, sleep. Okay, next up. This is a recommend from me. I really enjoyed this. This is a Korean psychological thriller. Basically about this guy who starts doing increasingly crazy things while he's sleepwalking. And they think it's to do with this sort of condition that you can get, like REM. I can't remember exactly what they called it. But
losing my religion.
Yeah. He was standing in the corner. There he was in the spotlight. It turns out to be something a bit more, and then it's sort of, again, it's a bit ambiguous as to whether it's a supernatural thing or not. There's sort of a ghostly element going on, sort of a horror thing. I thought the way they did it was really great. It's a lovely build-up. It's just this couple with the dog in a flat, and they lead sort of a very peaceful life. And it sort of is very creepy at times when he's up and sleepwalking and he's just like shoving food in his mouth, like raw eggs and stuff, or like just saying weird shit, and she started to freak out. I sort of took it to be maybe a kind of metaphor on like mental health and how it can be ignored and can get worse if it's not treated properly, or if it's misdiagnosed or not taken seriously enough. Because the doctors are a bit like, yeah, just put on a sleep mask and take this and you'll be fine in a few weeks. Don't worry about it. And sort of just brushing them off a little bit. But it's getting more and more serious. He's like almost jumping out of a window. Yeah. A really cool, tense ride. The main performances from the main two, Lee Sun-kyun and Young Yoo-mi. Lee Sun-kyun, who people will know from Parasite as the posh father in the rich house.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he passed away end of last year, so RIP. And this was his last film, I think. Yeah, great performance. All in all, great time. Good. Yeah, when I took on the character of Matt in HAZMAT, you have to get into the mindset of a fucking loser. Someone that just does not value his own life.
What the fuck? Next up, The Imaginary. Not to be confused with Imaginary.
I was about to ask. I think you've already talked about this one.
No, this is much different. It has the in it. So this is another anime movie. It dropped on Netflix, and this is a recommend from me because I don't know how to describe it. Immediately, sort of upon starting this movie, looking at the art style of it, it gave me the vibe of what if a Japanese studio created the kind of thing you'd see on the BBC at Christmas time.
Okay.
You know when they kind of do those one-off animations, and it's usually based on like a kid's book, and there's a very specific kind of like 2D style to it, and it's kind of it mimics the original look of
like the snowman.
Yeah, like it had that kind of vibe to it, but was an anime.
Interesting.
Obviously, a lot of it is anime is hand drawn, but like I don't know what it was in specific. Just the way it looked and the style and the way it moved, it just reminded me so much of that kind of.
Right. Yeah.
It just seemed like it was straight out of like a book, like a storybook, like come to life. And this was directed by, I'm probably gonna butcher the name here, directed by Yoshiyuki Momose, who has done a lot of work with Studio Ghibli, and I sort of more know for working on the Ni no Kuni games. I think he directed the Ni no Kuni movie. It's a high fantasy kind of movie where it's about this girl and she has an imaginary friend, and quite early on in the movie she gets hit by a car and is put in a coma, and this imaginary friend kind of comes to the realization if she's not around to remember me, I'm going to end up like disappearing. And it turns into this whole fantasy piece of him meeting like all of these other forgotten imaginary friends over the times. It's very kind of convoluted in how the rules work about them being forgotten, and sometimes they can come back as like someone else's imaginary friend. I don't know why that works, like how someone imagines like exactly the same thing. It's very bizarre. It doesn't go overly in depth about how the rules actually work, but it's not about that. It's like whenever Japan gets into like the magical spectacle high fantasy stuff, it's always like incredible to look at. They just pull no punches in how it looks in these kind of movies. I feel like with Western movies, when they do sort of magical fantasy stuff, they're just like, let's put some sparkles on screen, people will get it. Whereas this is just like fucking everything. It's everything. It's like stuff you wouldn't even thought of yourself. You're like, how did you come up with this visually? What was happening?
Three letters for you.
What was fucking happening in those studios?
LSD.
But yeah, it's just kind of like a sweet story about the power of the imagination and friendship and the importance of your childlike wonder and not losing it, because even though it can seem silly to some, for some people it has like quite a deep-rooted emotional connection to it, and it's just an easy watch. It's just an easy watch. So if you have a Netflix subscription and you're looking for something to just sit down and watch for an hour and a half, why not this? Cut. Ever cut.
Bloody hell, this is a long shoot.
Learning the accent was one thing, but I had to get into the mind of a character who has over 250 gigabytes of porn on his hard drive.
Last up, Douglas is cancelled.
Oh no. How are you going to talk about it?
I've got some bad news.
How are you going to talk about it? They're not showing it anymore.
Cancelled after one season.
I was going to talk about Douglas and then they cancelled it.
I'm so sick of Netflix cancelling shows after one season.
Don't give it a chat. If it doesn't hit the same numbers as SpongeBob immediately, they just can it.
I don't know why that's their benchmark, but for some reason, SpongeBob isn't even theirs. But for some reason, if it doesn't hit the viewing figures of SpongeBob that airs on TV, they can it. They fucking can it.
Fucking can it.
The recommends are always the hardest when you kind of just feel blech about something. It's not a not recommend. Didn't hate it. I'd recommend if you like
television
seeing... if you like watching 4-episode miniseries on ITV, if that's kind of how you spend your night, it's a pretty quick watch. I'd recommend if you like... Because it's written by Stephen Moffat. Of Doctor Who fame. And Sherlock fame. And it stars Karen Gillan of Doctor Who
and Sherlock fame.
Yeah. And Alex Kingston of Doctor Who and Sherlock fame. And so, if you like that combination of people from Matt Smith's era of Doctor Who together again...
From that combination of television shows.
Then, yeah, I'd recommend this. But it sort of, like, fell a little bit flat for me, I think. I don't know if it just needed a little bit more episodes to kind of explore what it was. So, essentially, it's a bit of a commentary on cancel culture, obviously, by the title.
No one knows how to do it. No one knows how to do it.
I was skeptical, but I was interested, because I'm always interested in how things tackle this sort of thing, because it's very rarely done right. And the way that a lot of these writers use cancelled, it's as if it's like a physical thing that happens, like getting fired.
Yeah.
But it's not really a real tangible thing. It's just a term that the internet has been using for a few years that basically means someone should take accountability for something they've done in the past that is deemed not acceptable by society at large. And it's sort of a bit of a wishy-washy definition. It's like some people lose jobs over it, some people are kind of shunned, some people come out the other side unscathed.
Well, I feel like the original cancelled was when it was something that was seen as so deplorable that there was no coming back from it. That you absolutely should be deplatformed and like not heard from again.
Yeah, so it sort of, I feel like, coincided with the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And like Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein, like, you know, the big ones, the big fish. They got taken out, and rightfully so. Taken out to the trash. But yeah, in recent times, it's just become a word for if anyone accidentally says something a bit off or makes a joke.
Or even if it wasn't you.
Yeah, but it's always been something I like haven't taken too seriously. But I mean, I'm not fucking sat here like fucking woke, fucking all you fucking woke snowflakes. It's something that like some stuff's more serious than others, and I think some people miss the nuance of that. I think some people are black and white with it.
Yeah,
I think people are allowed to slip up and learn from mistakes. That being like, you know, an offhand dodgy joke or something. If you've sexually assaulted someone, don't come near me, please. So this is about specifically the main character Douglas, played by Hugh Bonneville, is a newsreader, and he's been overheard at a wedding party saying a bit of a sexist joke. And so yeah, it's a bit of a smaller scale.
Yeah.
It sort of explores the fallout from that coming out. But the whole thing is, I guess it's a commentary on hearsay and their word against yours and stuff, because there's no real proof of the joke. It's just someone's tweeted they overheard it, they didn't say what the joke was, and so it goes like viral, you know, gets so many hits, oh my god, it's getting so many retweets.
Yeah.
And so there's certain bits that are a little bit like tone deaf. But then, surprisingly, the series becomes more about Karen Gillan's character taking power back from a past trauma. And that's sort of what the series is revealed to really be about. The treatment of women in the workplace, the power imbalance that can happen between a boss and an employee.
Yeah.
And how, people can be pressured into doing things if they feel like they need to keep a job or to get a job. And sort of the struggles and the imbalance and that can happen in a professional environment, and those sort of open secrets, that happen in these sort of businesses. So it becomes way more about that, and once it gets to that point, it's way more interesting. Once Karen Gillan's character, that plot is sort of revealed, her performance is taken to like another level, and the depth of her character really opens up, which was very unexpected. You expect it to be about Douglas, obviously. But it becomes less about that and more a statement on that stuff that I was just talking about. And so I think the last 2 episodes way more interesting than the first 2. The first 2 set up a premise nicely. I didn't think it was gonna go where it did. So that's why it was a bit kind of like, I don't know, for me.
Yeah.
Like, interesting ending. I think it did end a bit quick. I think it needed maybe 1 or 2 more episodes to really open up the concept. But it becomes less a story about an old white man being cancelled on Twitter and much more about the way more serious topic of sexual assault.
Even that seems like it's half of that is like years kind of out of touch or too late, because the whole idea of it in the moment not being such a big deal, but then it like snowballing and, like you said, being about hearsay and passing from person to person until it blows out of proportion, that seems more reminiscent of the Russell Brand Jonathan Ross thing,
right,
that happened years ago. And that seems to be like what people kind of, especially like these TV and filmmakers, seem to kind of equate cancel culture with, is that kind of scenario. But nowadays the whole cancel thing is more an immediate, once it comes out everyone knows. That was very much like the incident happened, not many people really cared about it when it did happen, but then through like word of mouth and passing person eventually it blew up until it became like a big scandal.
It has its comments on social media and stuff as well, and how that's made an impact to this sort of thing now, because back in the Russell Brand Jonathan Ross days, social media wasn't as prevalent a thing. Yeah. And so everyone just has access now to everybody all the time, and so anything you say or do or have ever done can be scrutinized and put under a microscope, for better or worse, And I think, like I say, some people miss the nuance of it, some people are very black and white with it, and I think a part of the cancel culture thing has kind of been co-opted by the right wing, the alt-right, the far right, whatever you want to call it, to be something they want to fight against, so that they've got an excuse to be racist and sexist and all the rest of it. And so I think it has become a bit of a ridiculous concept because of that, because it's been so blown out of proportion.
They kind of take this stance of like, oh, it used to be okay. And it's like, no, it's not that it used to be okay. It was never okay. It's just that people are actually taking a stance against it now because we've got more of a platform to do that.
Yeah, exactly. More people have a voice. And like I say, that's for better or worse. And I think people should be held accountable for bad stuff they've done in the past.
It's gone to the extremes in a lot of cases. Like we seem to be in a very feudalistic kind of situation in which like anything that comes out, people immediately want to dogpile onto it because it makes them look better by comparison.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Is a lot of people are looking purely for moral superiority points rather than actually wanting to fight for a good cause and just wanting to be on the correct side of things. It's a weird thing to talk about. It's a difficult thing to physically talk about, and like I say, I think a lot of writers get it wrong in the media that explores this.
It's not as black and white as they seem to think it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the show makes some really interesting points after episode 2. Before then, it is just a classic like
bumbling old
white man complaining about social media and how we can't say anything anymore and stuff. It became an interesting watch, more interesting to watch than I thought it was going to be. So, you know what? I will recommend it.
What a twist.
What a twist. Cool, really nice, serious discussion to end such a lovely episode on.
Fucking, I'm sick of these leftists.
These woke snowflakes. Thank you for watching HAZMAT, reviewing everything they saw in July.
If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see us do more stuff like this in the future, you can support the channel by leaving a like or a comment. You can hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. That way you'll be alerted to all our more recent uploads. And as always, all of our socials will be listed down in the description.
And join us next time where I get cancelled for finding a frog in the garden and taking him in as a pet and then feeding him what's-its.
And I'm going to imagine that I get cancelled for finding a frog in the garden, taking him in as a pet, and then feeding him what's-its.
I wonder what that would be like.
Oh, I could just see it now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.